The country's betting everything on AI. It's a massive geopolitical race between nations and giant corporations, and we're right in the middle of it. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're breaking down a shift so huge, it's literally reshaping the world as we know it. Because look, artificial intelligence, it's way past being just some trendy software update or a Silicon Valley buzzword. We're talking about the ultimate, high-stakes arms race. Think about the nuclear race, the space race, and the oil boom all rolled into one. That's the level of gravity we're dealing with here. To help us navigate this massive global chessboard, here's our roadmap. We'll look at AI as the new geopolitical weapon, map out the global AI superpowers, dive into the war for compute, explore the sovereign AI push, look at corporations versus nations, and finally, unpack the risks of this whole new order. Part 1. The new geopolitical weapon. Okay, let's dive into this. Why exactly are governments suddenly treating an emerging tech like a full-blown national security threat? Well, it's simple, really. Whoever controls AI is going to dominate the global economy, cyber warfare, and defense for decades to come. Back in the 20th century, global power was all about physical stuff, right? Oil reserves, rockets for the space race, nuclear tech during the Cold War. But 21st century power, it's a whole different ballgame. It is fundamentally built on compute. That's the raw processing power of advanced microchips, paired with massive oceans of data and algorithms. AI is what's dictating economic growth, military edge, and even how information is controlled today. Which brings us to Part 2, the global AI superpowers. Now, what's really interesting here is how we can actually map out the different players on this battlefield. Because there is no single way to win this race. Different regions are doubling down on their own unique strengths. You've got the US leading the charge in frontier models and advanced chips. Then there's China, heavily focused on rapid deployment at scale with massive state coordination. India is tapping into its incredible engineering talent pool to dominate deployment and open source ecosystems. Meanwhile, over in the EU, the focus is really on digital sovereignty through regulation. Then you look at the Gulf states, places like Saudi Arabia and the UAE. They're using their massive energy resources to fund huge AI infrastructures for a post-oil economy. And of course, South Korea and Japan are going all in on hardware and robotics. Let's zoom in on the US for a second, often dubbed the infrastructure king. $500 billion. That's a mind-boggling number. The US might spend over $500 billion on AI infrastructure in the year 2026 alone. I mean, they are pouring absolutely astronomical sums into the sector. Why? Because they control the biggest players, OpenAI, Google, Meta, plus the massive cloud networks and the absolute most advanced chips. But it gets really fascinating when you compare the US to China, because their playbooks couldn't be more fundamentally opposed. The US strategy is almost entirely driven by private corporations and this massive venture capital machine. China, on the flip side, treats AI as a centralized, state-backed, national survival project. They're weaving AI directly into their manufacturing, their mass surveillance, and military systems, all with incredibly tight government coordination. Now, the US has tried to keep its edge by restricting rivals from getting their hands on the most advanced chips. But here's the crazy irony of that strategy. Those export restrictions are actually putting China's drive for total independence into overdrive. They're aggressively building their own domestic chips, their own local AI models, national cloud systems, you name it. They are determined to build an entire ecosystem from the ground up so they never have to rely on American tech again. And then there's India, carving out a completely distinct path. They're taking their massive digital population and unmatched engineering workforce and really running with it. They're becoming a massive force in the open source developer world, aiming to be the go-to AI lab for the entire global south. And to pull that off, the Indian government is backing a massive push to scale up their infrastructure, taking it from around 20,000 all the way to 100,000 GPUs. Which leads us straight into Part 3, the war for compute. Because listen, this global competition isn't just about clever lines of code anymore. It is a physical, very real war for hardware. So, think about the central bottleneck that's holding this entire global race together. What would you say is the most important company in the world right now? It's not a giant oil conglomerate, and it's definitely not a major bank. The answer is NVIDIA. Why? Because practically every advanced AI system on the planet needs their GPUs to train those frontier models. They literally make the chips that everyone desperately needs. And because of this one massive choke point, we're seeing aggressive export bans, chip wars, new semiconductor alliances, and this intense rise in supply chain nationalism. Let's move to Part 4, the sovereign AI push, and see how this all builds into a massive push for self-reliance among nations. Countries are waking up to the fact that they absolutely cannot afford to depend on foreign supply chains. Enter the concept of sovereign AI. This basically means a nation completely controls its own AI stack. We're talking domestic data centers, local chip supply chains, independent AI models, the whole shebang. And the fear driving this is incredibly real. Think about it. If a foreign corporation or a rival government controls the AI that runs your country, they could eventually control your financial markets, your defense systems, your power grids, even your healthcare. Part 5. Corporations versus nations. This brilliantly illustrates one of the wildest twists in this whole race, the blurring line between national governments and private tech giants. $200 billion. Let me put that into perspective for you. It's been reported that the AI company Anthropic committed around $200 billion in cloud and chip spending with Google. That's a corporate AI budget that literally rivals the GDPs of entire small countries. These private tech companies now wield global influence, they own unfathomable compute power, and they control information at a scale that makes them pretty much geopolitical entities in their own right. Part 6. Risks of the New Order. We really need to take a step back and objectively look at the real-world fallout of a geopolitical race moving at this extreme speed. The sources point to 5 massive structural risks. First, a literal AI arms race where nations rush to deploy unsafe systems just to gain a strategic edge. Second, digital colonialism, meaning smaller countries without compute power end up totally dependent on US or Chinese infrastructure. Third is the rise of surveillance states, where AI allows for unprecedented mass monitoring and predictive policing. Fourth, severe economic disruption as rapid automation flips global labor markets upside down. And finally, military escalation. We are talking about the rapid evolution of AI-powered drones, cyber warfare, and completely autonomous intelligence systems. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Will algorithms or military bases shape the next decade? The nations placing these massive bets on AI firmly believe that the next world order isn't going to be defined by oil reserves or standing armies. It's going to be defined by compute, by data centers, and by AI talent. And unlike the industrial revolutions of the past, this one is happening at absolute breakneck speed. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this massive geopolitical shift. If you want to keep untangling the complexities of our rapidly changing world, please hit subscribe to our YouTube channel for more deep dive explainers just like this one. Keep learning, stay curious, and we will see you next time.